Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we're going to have a little chat about the rumours surrounding a new Keeper of Secrets. A whole bunch of you have sent me this rumour, and to be honest, straight from the start, I'll say that the original source for this, I would say, is one of the more reliable ones when it comes to rumours and predictions. It's the French YouTube channel that also came up with the prediction for Abaddon and new obliterators/mutilators. They've also got other things right in the past. I can't remember what the other big one was, but I know that they have been pretty much on target, pretty much on track with what they've said. So that, for a start, kind of makes me think that there is probably something to this. That being said, a new Keeper of Secrets is well within the realms of possibility, regardless of what the original source might be for this particular rumour. Now, of course, I'm not saying that this particular source means that it's absolutely true. It could be a load of old Skrillex, we never know. It's very difficult to tell until we actually get some sort of confirmation in the form of seeing a model in the flesh, for instance. But given that we currently have essentially newer versions of all kind of greater demons, so to speak, of the Chaos Gods, the Keeper of Secrets is the one that is the most far behind. It is the oldest, it is the most dated by far. And to be honest, we already kind of know that Slaanesh seems to be getting a bit of a rework. It might not be quite as comprehensive as the one that, say, Chaos Space Marines are getting. It might not be quite in the same scale as, like, the 40k kind of armies for the Chaos Gods are getting. But we already have a new Herald of Slaanesh. We already have new Fiends of Slaanesh in the Wrath and Rapture box. The Demonettes aren't really that old. The Seekers also aren't particularly old either. Really, at this point, the oldest thing is the Keeper of Secrets. I mean, there's a couple of characters as well that could do with updating, but in terms of the bulk of stuff in your army, Slaanesh isn't really all that far behind. And I will say that whilst there is currently a little bit of a strange gap between what we see in terms of the Demonettes and the new Fiends, then a new Herald, in terms of both, I won't just say overall design, because the overall design is similar, but there are specific things about the Fiend and the Herald that are just that much more, I'd say, adult in nature, and to be honest, freaky as hell in design than the Demonettes and Seekers. They still mesh well enough in an all-demon army that really, they're pretty much on par with each other. I'd argue that perhaps the Demonettes could use a little bit of an update, but they're not terrible. They're pretty good. They work well enough. Keeper of Secrets, however, has been dated for quite some time. When you look at what Nurgler's got in the form of the Great and Clean One, when you look at things like the Bloodthirsters for Khorne, when you look at the Lord of Change for Tzeentch. Sorry, I did it again. Tzeentch, not Tzeentch. I said Tzeentch for years and years. It's become a bad habit, and now it's really difficult, unless I consciously think about it, to not say Tzeentch instead of just Tzeentch. Those are all pretty damn good models. They've all had relatively recent updates. I think the oldest out of all of them is the Bloodthirster, the newer Bloodthirster, but it looks great. That is a model that has, in my eyes anyway, not aged at all. It looks as good as it did, and it's holding up incredibly well. Then again, I think those came out around the same time as the Khorne Demon King Codex, so they've got a leg up in terms of age. By contrast, Keeper of Secrets looks kind of garbage at this point. It really does need a refresh. The thing is, there's all sorts of rumours surrounding this rumour. I think, to be honest, the main thing is the idea of a new Keeper of Secrets, which, to be honest, is, I would hope that it's a sure thing. It may well not be, but it is a model that desperately needs an update. The thing is, there's a lot of stuff floating around it, that Slaanesh is getting a whole bunch of new stuff, that is being looked at, that is being updated and overhauled. The thing is, I don't know exactly how accurate these kind of branched rumours actually are, because we already have new Fiends and a new Herald. The rest of the skulls aren't really that old, aside from some of the characters, especially in the Age of Sigmar range. Really, the Keeper of Secrets is the big one. It's the one that needs updating the most. The rest aren't really that bad, and I don't know whether they particularly need updating, so to speak. It'd be nice if they were, but do they actually need it? I don't know if they do, and I don't know if Games Workshop would think that they do. Of course, alongside that is the fact that, yes, you do have these kits that aren't actually that old and aren't really that dated, at which point it starts branching out into, okay, well, maybe actually what we're going to see is things like Emperor's Children. Again, I would really like that to be the case. I don't think that it's as clear-cut as a new Keeper of Secrets. I don't think it's as much of a sure thing as receiving that specific new model. Whilst I do really, really want Emperor's Children to become their own codex in the same way as Death Guard and Thousand Sons, and I'm sure it will happen at some point, I'm still absolutely convinced that we will see that at some stage. It's whether it's going to be an upcoming thing, or whether we're going to have a bit of a gap. Because the thing is, we currently have quite a big Chaos release on the way as it is. The Shadow Spear stuff, the stuff that we've seen for Chaos so far, kind of indicate that this month, like this part of the year, is the big Chaos part of the year. We also have the Blades of Khorne stuff as well for Age of Sigmar. Chaos are having quite a good time of it right now. I don't know whether that would necessarily just continue straight on into Emperor's Children, for instance, which is something that I've seen a few people talk about. I would expect to see a considerable gap, to be honest, between the new Chaos stuff we're seeing now and like an Emperor's Children Codex. I would expect to see that way later in the year, based on what we're getting now. To me, the most sensible thing that would happen, that seems the most likely, is that we would get the current Chaos releases for 40k. We've got the Blades of Khorne stuff for Age of Sigmar. Then we would see the Slaanesh stuff out of the Wrath and Rapture box be released as its own thing, which is entirely likely and sensible, and most likely is what's going to happen. Alongside that release, alongside the Slaanesh demons getting their new battle tome, their new little range that they're getting, we see a Keeper of Secrets released alongside that. Now, it could be that the Keeper of Secrets makes both a generic one and a named one. That's what we've seen with the Great and Clean one, for instance. I would be surprised if we didn't see that to some degree. But if we see new Fiends, new Herald, perhaps a new character, for instance, which is entirely possible, and a Keeper of Secrets / named Keeper of Secrets, then that's not a bad release and would most likely, with scenery, put it around the same size as the Blades of Khorne release, if we take into account a new Greater Demon. Would Games Workshop immediately go from that straight into Emperor's Children because Slaanesh is getting an update, so why not? I don't know if they would. That might be piling it on a little bit thick. That might be saturating the market for Chaos just a little bit over a short time frame. I would be more inclined to think that there would be then a gap between this kind of big bulk of Chaos releases, because it's not just the stuff in Shadowspear. We also know for a fact that we've got Havocs coming for Chaos Space Marines, and we know for a fact that there are more things alongside that. Games Workshop have said themselves that there's more stuff to be revealed. I think probably if we do see a Keeper of Secrets in the near future, it'll be off the back of the kind of splitting up of the Wrath and Rapture box, that it will be part of a Slaanesh release involving the Fiends, involving the Herald, involving some scenery and a new battle tome to match the Blades of Khorne thing that's just happened, and that in terms of 40k, yes, you can use a Keeper of Secrets in 40k, obviously it's part of a Slaanesh demon army, but we wouldn't necessarily see an Emperor's Children thing right off the back of that, because that would be a whole load of chaos in a very short amount of time. It might be better to wait a bit. And I suspect we probably would wait a bit because of just simply the fact that we've got this 40k Chaos Space Marine release right now. So in terms of Keeper of Secrets, absolutely likely. I'm expecting we'll see it at some point. It's the one that needs revisiting. All the other gods have had their greater demons actually already show up. The oldest one, I'm pretty sure the oldest one is the Bloodthirster, and it still looks great. The others don't need revisiting, they don't need looking at, but the Keeper of Secrets is definitely well behind the curve. It's more a case of when than if, in my opinion, and when it would make sense for it to be sooner rather than later. But then again, I've said stuff like that before and been wrong about the release schedule by far, because Games Workshop have either pushed things or decided that they're going to release things in a different way than I've expected. Emperor's Children off the back of a Keeper of Secrets seems kind of unlikely to me. That's something I would not get my hopes up for if I were you personally. Anyway, that is the rumour and the rumours surrounding the rumour and all the kind of spread out add-on stuff that I've seen people talking about off the back of this thing. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think we're going to see Keeper of Secrets relatively soon? Do you think it's guaranteed, but really we can't judge when? Or do you think it would make sense for it to be out with the Wrath and Rapture stuff that Slaanesh is going to be having in its own box, Blade of Corn style, that we currently have going on right now? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the videos, Patreon, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.